Are you looking for a book to improve your sex life? Then you have to pick up this month's book therapy pick. Watch the video to learn more. Alright, if you're new around here, my name is Diana Garcia. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in Florida, owner of a private practice called Nurturing Minds Counseling. My book therapy series is where I pick one mental health self-help book to review, recommend, and at least pick out 3 key insights just in case you never get to actually pick up the book. So let's jump into this month's pick. All right, this month's book therapy pick is Sex Talks, the 5 Conversations That Will Transform Your Love Life by Vanessa Marin and her husband, Xander Marin. Vanessa is a licensed psychotherapist specializing in sex therapy. I follow them on Instagram, and I'll put the handle below because you definitely follow them. So much good information on their IG. So I was interested to see about their book, if what it would really be about, if it would have good content and information, and it really does. Hence why I'm recommending it for this month. Let's jump into the summaries to see kind of generally what's in the book and what you can expect. All right, as you can see from the screen, the book is broken down into 3 parts. Part 1, all about you. This is really where they just start off with some basic psychoeducation on sex, busting, I think, common myths about sex and sex lives, kind of what we think based on just common messages that are perpetuated that really don't work or aren't true. And what's really cool is in the first part, they also start to talk about kind of focusing more on you than the relationship. Like before you get into the sex talks, kind of understanding yourself better, understanding your body, your turn-ons, turn-offs, and pretty much you create your user manual. So I really thought that was cool because, again, this is where you individually, and if you're reading this with your partner, obviously they'd be doing it as well, kind of starting to understand what works, what doesn't work for sexual intimacy for you individually. So then, of course, that you and your partner can start to have these conversations. Part 2, it's really the 5 sex talks, or the meat and potatoes of the book. That's when you start to dive into each conversation. As you can see here, it's acknowledgement, connection, desire, pleasure, and exploration. And again, in each chapter, there's also so much information, like good psychoeducation, that I think you really need to know. And I didn't know some of this. So I think it's helpful that you just even read it, even if you're not ready to actually have the conversations. There's just so much good data in it. And then, of course, she kind of guides you through some of the conversations, how you can have them, common pitfalls, and how you can navigate them. And again, really owning your side of the street. So what you can do as much as possible to help ensure these conversations go well. Part 3, keeping the twin flames alive for life. This is kind of more of a wrap up, but really kind of more going into troubleshooting what could go wrong, what to expect, really kind of some concrete tips to how you can really make your sex life a priority, but also your relationship and your connection. Because of course, all these conversations, it's not a one and done. These are ongoing conversations that you need to be having. And again, your relationship and your connection is something that you need to prioritize and focus on throughout the life of your relationship, right? If you want your relationship and connection to last. So insight number 1, it's just talking about identifying your sex drive. So again, realizing that there's actually 2, but let's back up a little bit. So first, how do people get turned on? There's actually mental desire and physical arousal. Because again, they talk about people really confuse the 2 and they don't realize that they're actually distinct, right? So you can be physically aroused, right? Your body could be having a reaction, but you're not desire. Your mind is not in it. Or vice versa. You can be thinking about it, but your body's not cooperating, right? Your body's not having the physical responses of arousal. Now, she then talks about there's 2 distinct sex types based on the research. The first one, spontaneous, that's when you actually feel mental desire first and then physical arousal. So this is when you're more likely to think about sex, have thoughts about it, randomly it pops up, or you want to initiate sex. And typically in a relationship, if you are more spontaneous, you're the partner that is the one that's initiating sex, or usually the partner that one of you would identify has a higher sex drive or libido, which again, we want to kind of bust a little bit of that myth that it's not even so much most of the time having a high or low libido. It's actually probably a different sex drive. The second one is responsive, and that's usually the one that a lot of people are unaware of. That's the one where you actually need to be physically aroused first, and then the mental desire comes second. So you actually probably aren't going to get turned on or really get into it until you're physically kind of in that space. And of course, there's different elements and turn-ons, turn-offs that can help you. But generally kind of keeping that in mind, because a lot of times in this responsive sex drive, those are people that typically would say, I never think about sex. I could go without sex. I'm usually not the one that initiates in our relationship. My partner is the one always says that I'm the one with the issue. I'm the one with the problem. I feel guilty. So again, it's really acknowledging the difference between the 2. And a lot of times if you and your partner have different types, then it can be really difficult, or that's where their conflict can show up. So just want to highlight that because again, I think it's important to know that and to bust some common misconceptions that it's only the spontaneous type. Now, if this is the first time that you're actually learning about two distinct sex drives, hit the thumb up now to let me know that this is brand new information and really helpful information for you in your relationship. Into insight number 2. So the second one is the physical emotional conundrum. So again, this is just an insight that I picked out from the conversation, the second conversation about connection. Again, there's so many insights, so it was hard to really nail down one. But I want to talk a little bit about this because I think it's important and applicable. And even if you don't pick up the book, it's just helpful information for you to have. So, a lot of times we talk about like keeping the spark alive in our relationships. What does that even mean or look like? And she actually breaks it down. Again, they break it down into two distinct kind of twin flames, the emotional intimacy and physical intimacy. And the reality is that you need both to survive in a long-term relationship. Like your relationship isn't going to be fully nurturing or fulfilling if you only have one. And that the reality is one is typically a prerequisite for the other, but that for two types of people, it's different. It's kind of the inverse. So one group of people, they actually need emotional connection first in order to want or to be in the space to have kind of physical intimacy or sexual connection. And then vice versa, usually there's an other group of people who need actually sexual connection first to feel emotionally connected. Like they actually feel emotionally connected having sexual physical intimacy, right? And so, and a lot of times what will happen is that one type of person will be in a relationship with the other type of person. So again, you could see how that could cause issues, right? Because if you're the type of person that you need emotional connection, and let's say you and your partner aren't vibing, you guys are having disagreements, you guys are having fights, and then your partner tries to approach you to have sex, you're like, what's going on in your mind, dude? Right? Buddy, like what's happening? It's that you really are like, how do you think that we are going to actually get into the sack when we are having all these issues, right? Because you need that emotional connection and intimacy to be right to want to have the physical intimacy. But for the other partner, they're like, well, what do you mean? This is what it's going to help us to feel connected. Yeah, we're not vibing, but this is what's going to help us come closer together and feel like we're on the same page again and we're vibing and in sync. So again, so you could see how there could be issues, right? Because typically if you think, oh, my partner just wants sex, just wants physical, but really if that's how they seek emotional connection and closeness, it's not just about sex, right? So understanding if this dynamic is playing out in your relationship, especially if your partner is one or the other. Again, also acknowledging, and she goes through way more tips and more information about this, it's that usually one has to come before the other. She says that's a very controversial position that she takes, but she actually says it's more important to focus on the emotional intimacy first. That doesn't mean letting go of the physical, right? So if you're in that group of people that need the sexual first to feel connected, but really trying to focus on that emotional connection first for your relationship to then focus on the physical, right? And clearly acknowledging that at times there's going to be ebbs and flows. Insight number 3, it's really kind of breaking down about some just common tidbits, facts about pleasure, right? And this is taken from the conversation for the 4th conversation. Again, I'm not doing this justice because there's so many tidbits in there, but again, picking things out that you could just consume on their own. The first one, pleasure. So keeping in mind that it's a little bit of a complex process or like concept to really even explain, right? She talks about pleasure can not only be physical, but it could be mental, emotional, situational, energetic, relational, spiritual, and really kind of acknowledging also that all those factors can play a role in pleasure, right? So maybe there's a time when you're just not mentally into it, or maybe like the environment isn't right, like maybe the lights are too harsh, or maybe there's a time when, again, emotionally you're not feeling connected, or spiritually something feels off, right? So again, or spiritually something feels on, and that's really going to kind of increase pleasure. So acknowledging that they can all be playing a role in factors. And then of course that it changes and flows and ebbs, right? That there's, and I think that's kind of keeping in mind so that one thing that worked one night really well, right? If all the conditions were right and even certain stimulation and pressure and touch and all these right places, or that what you've identified as right places might not work. And there can be many different reasons for that. And so that really means that ongoing conversations about what really, elicits pleasure needs to be happening like going forward, right? It's not just like a one and done conversation. And I think that's what she talks about. A lot of people think that like, okay, you give feedback once and that's it. And vice versa. Your partner might think like, okay, I'm doing that thing that you told me to do. Why is this not really working for you anymore? So again, because you understand that there's so many different factors and it's a complex process, that ongoing conversations conversations need to be part of that. The second or the third part is really understanding, and she maps this out in the book, these touch maps. And so I thought that was really cool how she kind of has this like for you to map out, like, where in your body do you like to be touched, the types of pressure, where you like to be kissed, things like that. And also understanding what you're experiencing, what type of pleasure you're experiencing from sex. For some people, again, it might be more about that, like really feeling emotionally close, connected. For other people, it's just more like they're seeking that stress relief. So again, and she has types that you can identify and really understand. This, for some reason, made me think of that episode in Friends where Monica and Rachel, I think they're explaining it to Chandler, like different places in the body. And you can see kind of Monica kind of breaking it down and explaining it. And, as she's going, and clearly she's having the experience of pleasure. But that's just what it made me think about, like, again, that touch map and like what that would look like, and individually understanding that and sharing that with your partner. The fourth one, it's really, again, going back, because this changes and conversations need to be happening, is that both parties need to be comfortable with giving and receiving feedback about this. And she goes through how to do feedback the right way, not the wrong way, but individually kind of taking responsibility, both how you approach it and also how you receive it. And also, again, as a relationship and a couple, being open to that being an ongoing conversation. 3 insights that I picked out from the book. Like I said, there was so much good information in here. That's why I'm recommending it. So let me know in the comments below what really stuck out to you, or maybe there's something that you really are interested in picking up the book. Like, what is something you're hoping you're learning if you read the book? And of course, this month, like I said last month, we're doing something new. I'm actually doing a giveaway, right? 1 copy of the book, USA only. Look at the links below for the information on how to enter, because again, I'm hoping that not only are you just getting these insights, but you're inspired to actually pick up this book. So hopefully even entering the giveaway so that you can maybe have a possibility of getting the book for free. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful, and I encourage you to continue nurturing your mind, body, and soul, whatever that means for you individually, in your relationship, and just keep on your self-growth journey. All right, guys, thanks. Have a good one.